एकम् अक्षरम् हृदिकरम् भासते लिप्यते कथम् हृदयमध्ये केवलम् ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् महन्ति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि मनसा स्वं चिन्वता अच्युता पवन चलन आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं जडामहम् अहं तस्य नाहं तत्तदभासुप्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्धा तत्कुतो दृष्टा मनिष्ठा सो स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभा स्वयं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः विभाति स्वयं is indeed Bhagavan's grace that I am able to address such an esteemed audience. Sadhakas of eminence who have been trained by listening to the great speakers of this esteemed institution, which has been doing yeoman service to the field of spirituality for decades now. This particular topic came up as part of our workshop, self-inquiry workshop, where Akka had given me this topic, Know the Knower, where we realized an important fact that Bhagavan, Shri Ramana Maharshi, had made the problem of samsara and the solution of liberation with this brief but powerful statement that not knowing the knower is the root of all problems, and knowing the knower is the solution to all samsaric problems. I'll repeat that again. Not knowing the knower is at the heart or the root of all samsaric problems, and knowing the knower is at the heart of all solutions to the problem of samsara, to the problem of bondage. Now, when we were taking this point home in the workshop, it became clearer and clearer what a great blessing Bhagavan's avataram, Ramana Maharshi's avataram, has been for the seekers of the truth across all kinds of belief systems. What a great boon Bhagavan's appearance has been. The Avatara Mahime. But let's begin the way a normal person sees this problem. I was leaving for the workshop in an auto from here home. It's about 15-20 kilometers from here home. And usually if the traffic is not busy, the auto drivers also like to chat up. And I also find it interesting to see that we are all on common ground. Where we meet life, we are on common ground with everybody else. And lots of insights their approach provides. This particular friend provided an insight as to how a normal person sees the current situation. And he was going on about how it is all deteriorating day by day. The children are facing more and more distractions and difficulties, whether they are school going or college going. The parents seem to be much less interested in their children than the parents of before. Not only is the political system not interested in what is happening, even the judicial system seems to be not supporting the common man, and on and on. But he was a very sensitive person, and when we shared the story of the milk taking that is common in Indian traditions, he was immediately able to see some light that where the responsibility for this lies, where the responsibility to deal with the situation, whatever it may be, that as we see it, where does the responsibility actually lie? We have a wonderful story in our legends in India, where we are taken to a country where dairy farming seems to have been the main avocation, and the rural people there seem to have hit a roadblock, have difficulty, and the king decides that he will arrange for distribution of milk among the poor and needy. So among the city folk who are the better off, he gives them instructions that they have to bring about a liter of milk and pour it into the common container so that it can be distributed. And as I narrated this story, our friend was also all ears. And I said, by the end of the evening, the king was astounded to see that there was only water. There was only water in the pitcher, the whole barrel that was arranged, because each one of us, each one of the people in that country, had taken a pitcher of a liter of water, feeling that since all the rest will be bringing milk, how does it matter if I take a liter of water? So, how is the system arranged? Though each of us may see the problems to have been distributed all over the world, each one of us has to bring the milk to the common lot. That is the moral of that story, which is delivered even more clearly by Richard Feynman in his talk called The Value of Science. He drives the nail home in that he finds that ultimately, in one sense, science is only a power. Science is a power. He doesn't come with a book which tells how to use it for good or evil. But he doesn't stop there. He doesn't stop with the study of science. This particular approach to science also he gets from a visit to the Bahamas, to one of the Buddhist monasteries there, and the Buddhist monk who takes them around the monastery, at the end of the tour, he gives them a tip. He says that I am going to give you a tip. You should forget this. You should never forget what I have said now. And Feynman says he never forgot it. And we should also not forget that. The tip is that in Buddhism, there is this proverb which says that within each man, not in a group of people, not with husband and wife team, not with the family, not with the country, but within each man, within each human being is provided a key, and the key opens the doors to heaven. The gateway to heaven, there is a key. And the same key, unfortunately, opens the door to hell also. That means, what is Buddhism saying? Buddhism is saying is that all the powers may be available to each one of us, but the responsibility to use whatever is in your domain for good or bad is in your hands, is given to each one. And his explanation about these powers is very interesting. He says that not only is science a power, education is a power. And usually we feel education is wholly good. But we know now that it is not so, that education can be used for good or for evil by the one who is handling that power, whoever that may be. Similar is the case with the power of religion, he says. The religion is power. The ability to bring peace, the dialoguing between countries, the political dialoguing between countries, that is power. How you use that power is still in the hands of the individual. That how key it is to understand that each one of us is responsible to bring the milk to the pitcher, to the common lot. Though when I was sharing this with the gentleman who was driving me to the workshop, we hit upon another support from Basavanna, who also says that all the differences in the nature of the work that we do, let us say the powers that we use, become zero when we understand that each work allows us to gain ekagrita, gain focus of mind. That Basavanna too, by saying Kayakave Kailasa, he removes what is the object of focus. What is the object that we are focusing? I was trying to share with him that in a few minutes or a few hours, I may be sharing some communication across the mic, but you are driving an auto. There may be a prime minister doing 8 hours of work which involves the destiny of a country, or there may be a banker who works 8 hours happily, 10 hours happily, being successful at what he or she does. But though the objects of focus are different, is there any difference in the ekagrita, in the one-pointedness of mind? So in each one's mind, this ability to bring good into this world is available, and so is the responsibility. So our conversation started taking a turn as to how nicely he has understood the situation and how nicely he is being responsible in driving on a Sunday so that his family will be kept up to date, capable of meeting the individual needs in the family members. His upkeep of his dharma is much better than whatever may be happening all over the world. That means the point of sadhana has been shifted by our spiritual understanding from the common lot to the individual. And this is a very significant point to understand, and which is what Advaita Vedanta and Bhagavan are to take home completely. That this responsibility which we find at the heart of spiritual teachings in general, that the outside world is a combination of powers or objects of focus, but the responsibility to be focused and to bring good or bad is in each one of us. Each one of us is responsible, whether we are handling the scissors trimming the hairs or the finger that may trigger the nuclear button. The power that is used may be vast, but still the finger is not very important. But that person and what sense of right and wrong, good and bad he or she has is what is going to be brought to the common law. That is why Bhagavan used to say there is nothing like common spiritual teachings. There is only individual spiritual teachings, because you may give common information, but the spiritual teachings have to be applied by every individual. And we have the story of Valmiki to prove that. I won't go into that as it is very well known. We go ahead into the topic at hand, and we take how is this individual task directly approached, and what are the direct approaches we have? We have the karma, bhakti, yoga, and jnana margas, and each of these have some degree of involvement with the other, involvement with the world. Karma, bhakti, yoga, jnana have different degrees of involvement with the world. The most direct responsibility brought to the individual you find in the Bhrigu or the dialogue between Bhrigu and Varuna in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The dialogue between Bhrigu and his father Varuna gives us a shift in focus as to how the onus is completely in the individual. That is, the dialogue is between a disciple and a guru, though the guru here is the father himself. And you will be able to see how the guru, let alone bring in the world, let alone bring in the others. The Guru is even going to take himself out of the scene. What is the dialogue primarily that is there in the Upanishad that we see? To put it in simple terms, is that Bhrigu wants to find the truth of the Supreme Being, of the Brahman. And he goes and asks his father, please teach me the truth of the Supreme Being. And this gentleman sitting in the Guru's form, he doesn't utter anything other than saying that go and do tapas, go and meditate on what you want to know. And Bhrigu sets off and meditates and comes upon with the finding that Annam Brahmam, that the matter that we see is Brahma. This is where he meets the scientists in their basic form of study. That he comes and finds that Brahman, the Supreme Being, is all the things that we find as matter around all of us. That the body is a candle, is burning brightly. But as the science says, that not a single atom is wasted, even when what we call as death supervenes, that there is only change of atoms from one form to another, from solid to liquid, liquid to gas, but not a single atom is created or destroyed, not a single bit of energy is wasted, is created or destroyed, is the finding of science. And he comes back with this finding to his father. That is, the Supreme Being is fully Annam. And he comes and talks to his father, please tell me, please teach me about the Supreme Being. And the father again says, go and meditate, do tapasya. That's all. We are reminded of the exchange Bhagwan and Lakshman Sharma ji have when they do this commentary. This book is there, which is the reality in 40 verses. The commentary is by Pandit Lakshman Sharma ji. For 4 years, Bhagwan himself says, Pandit Lakshman Sharma ji, who felt some other commentary that was existing was not up to the mark, Bhagwan says, why do you find faults with others' commentaries that may be useful to someone? Do you feel you can write it better? And Lakshman Sharma ji says, yes. And 4 years, like Bhrigu and Varuna, Lakshman Sharma ji and Bhagavan have exchanges about these verses. What Lakshman Sharma ji has to do, he has to pick the Tamil verse, translate it into Sanskrit and bring it. Bhagavan will merely say, this is not up to the mark. And again, he will have to redo and bring. Of course, there have been exchanges about what Tamil is to be read in what format and all that. Bhagavan assures that he will teach Lakshman Sharma ji Tamil itself. But the general exchange is similar to what Bhrigu and Varuna undergo. The teacher is totally sure that the light of consciousness is within the student, that the world is best playing its role when it is reflecting that light back in the form of inquiry within. And Lakshman Sharma ji coins verse after verse. And finally, we have the present commentary with us after 4 years of what Bhagavan himself calls as tapasya, that Lakshman Sharma ji did with Ramana Maharishi. We find Bhrigu going back to his meditation of Annam Brahman, and he comes upon that the Anna is permeated by prana. He comes upon this truth that the pranam is Brahman, is the Supreme Being, just like the scientists have found that the matter is really not matter. The matter is really only the fields of energy crisscrossing, and at particular points of intersection, what appears like an electron or what appears like a proton is visible to us from one perspective. That really speaking, there is no material world. There is only the flow of energy. And where the energy field is exchanging or is crisscrossing, they have their own special terms. There, the points of intersection, they are visible to us in the form of material. So, literally speaking, all of us are only the flow of energies. And that is what Bhrigu also finds as the energy or prana is Brahma. And again, he is not contented with that. He is not feeling that he has completed the inquiry. Somehow the tripti is not there. So again, he is impelled to go to his father, his guru, and again you find that no words, no explanation about prana or about matter or about anything higher. And he says, go and do penance again. And the penance reveals that to Bhrigu that Manas is the Brahman. Manas is the supreme being. So the area of knowledge, area of knowing is the supreme being. And still with that, he is not satisfied and comes back and again is asked to do tapas, and he comes to the Vijnanamaya Kosha, where discriminatory thought, the thought that differentiates between subject and object, that differentiates between good and bad. We saw Feynman find that it is in the intellect, that as an intellectual being, that the responsibility to bring good is there. Otherwise, the animals don't have this. If you go to the Bible, we are all people who have eaten the fruits of the tree of good and bad. And as we have eaten that, we are responsible to how we bring or how we use the energies that are at our disposal. So that is the kosha that Bhrigu comes, that supreme being is the Vijnanamaya. And then too, he is discontented. Even that doesn't bring him contentment. He is impelled to go and meet his guru again. And again the guru says, just go and do tapasya. And this is the time when he comes to realize where we all go in deep sleep, where the self, the individual self, goes into the supreme self and takes rest in deep sleep. Bhrigu consciously goes, crossing the Vijnanamaya Kosha also, and he realizes that's Anandam Brahman, that the bliss is the nature of oneself and Brahman. And having discovered the Satchitananda inside, he is no more impelled to go and meet his guru. He is contented. No more outside support is required. The only outside support given by the guru is from his knowledge that the student is bound to find out the Anandam inside. With his tapo shakti, he pushed the mind of the Sishya back within. And as the self already within, he pulled the mind of the Sishya as he was meditating and made him realize his true nature as the Anandam, the Satchitanandam that is inside. This is what we find in modern terms, without going into the nitty-gritties of it, in that dialogue between Bhrigu and his father, his guru, about the problem, the samsara, and coming out of it. Yet another work that we find comes very close to giving very direct approach to solving the samsaric problem we find in Mandukya Upanishad. Why I am taking these two directly from the auto driver and the onus on each one of us is that these two I find are very, very direct approaches to what problem we all face and what is the solution that is offered to us. These are very direct approaches. But we are going to find that Bhagavan is even more compassionate to the sadhaka. So that is the direction we are headed. Let us spend a few moments with what Mandukya Upanishad is telling us, not in the great details that the Karika contains, but in the general direction where the Upanishad takes us. My own interest in Mandukya Upanishad started in the Sadhuvam mess in Tiruvannamalai, where I met a gentleman from Karnataka called Maruti. He used to belong to a team who were Mandukya Upanishad meditators. They used to meditate. It is one of the shortest Upanishads and one of the most powerful ones. It is also called Muktika Upanishad. And the discussions I had with Maruti was that I knew only the talks with Ramana Maharshi, which I would go through along with my practice of Atma Vichara. And to whatever questions he had or whatever dialogues he brought up from Mandukya Upanishad Karika background, I could find the response from me coming from Bhagavan's talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. And he used to be stunned. He used to ask, have you gone through Mandukya Upanishad thoroughly? I used to say then, later on, I did have the blessing of going through the work, though not at an expert level. But he used to be surprised that I would be able to answer him. And I would tell him, I haven't gone through the Upanishad, but only gone through talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi is in one sense applied Mandukya Upanishad. And what does this Upanishad say that makes it so direct? Is that the study on one hand is about Omkara as the Brahma Swarupam, but we will keep that aside for the moment. The other dialogue, other segment is about the discussion about the individual and Ishvara in the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. Here, let us divert a little bit to the first topic that was given to me by Sharadaka in the workshop. With your permission, let me go into that. The first topic given to me was that the world is in the mind. What is the common intuition we all have? The common intuition we all have when I go for the morning walk with my friend Murali in the park, the normal feeling we have or the feeling we have now that my mind is inside this body and I am facing about 15 others whose minds are inside their particular bodies, and that is the language we are using. We are going to learn a completely new language by the end of this sharing. But in early days, we used to have learn English through Kannada in 30 days. That means Kannada, you can learn English, but you need the language that you know, isn't it? Similarly, we are going to use the language of mind in the body to see that the world is in the mind, not that the mind is in the world, not that the mind is in the body, but the whole world, the whole gross world is in the mind. But first, we have to start with the language we have, isn't it? Coming to languages, Murali himself is a very devoted person. And he is very comfortable with the language of surrender. That Bhagavan nodkoltare, our heldange agutte. A few days back, I was in a situation where he was with a group of friends who were worried about him because he was alone now. His mother had passed away. They were all worried about him, how he is going to manage. He has a small property. So they were asking about cause and effect, about what he is going to do. And he was replying, Bhagavan nodkoltare, Bhagavan heldange agutte. So I had to take him aside and tell him, why don't you talk in their language? They just want an assurance that you are not going to sell off the house and use the money for some purposes. Just assure them they are all good people who want your welfare, but they have the language of cause effect. And I also requested them that they could try to understand his language of surrender. So these are the languages we have, not as the language differences we have, but the language of surrender is different from language of cause and effect. The language of the world being in the mind is different from the language we have where the mind seems to be in the body. But let's go from here. That is where one small shift in our perception helps to understand that the mind is not in the world, but the world is in the mind. What is the shift we are coming? The mind is not caught up inside, trapped inside the world, but the world is in the mind. What is the purpose of this? So that your sadhana with the thoughts is final, is taking care of even the gross aspects. What is the shift you have to make? The shift you have to make is to shift from the timing of the senses called day and night. When we use the senses, we have the time rolling as day and night. We have to shift to the timing of the mind, which is what Vedanta uses, of Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti. When you make that shift, that we are not in day now, we are not in, night now, we are in Jagrat. See, the very present situation, Jagrat can be in day or in night. So, but it cannot be other way around, that both day and night are limited to Jagrat. They cannot enter Swapna or Sushupti. That means the Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti cycle of the mind is far more encompassing than the day-night cycle of the senses. The day-night cycle of the senses reveals the gross world. But the gross world is perceived only in our Jagrat. So how you have to talk to yourself? Don't talk to yourself that you are sensing a sensory world which is day and night, but you have to do dhyana that you are in the Jagrat avastha, in which the day and night you can sleep in the day and be awake right through the night. Therefore, this Jagrat Swapna Sushupti cycle is far more encompassing than the day-night cycle of the senses. We can't go too much into that, but that is how the dhyana shifts from the mind is in the world to the world is in the mind. When you are dealing with Jagrat Swapna Sushupti, you are already treating that the world is in the mind. And that is what Vedanta will be using. That is what Mandukya Upanishad uses. That Mandukya Upanishad uses the Jagrat Swapna Sushupti cycle and says that in the Jagrat, the individual is called Vishwa, and the Ishvara of the Jagrat situation, the one who is the self behind the whole of the Jagrat Avastha, is called Virat. The dream, the individual is called Tejasa, and Ishvara is called as Hiranyagarbha, and in deep sleep, the individual is called as Prajna, and the Ishvara is called as Ishvara. And beyond these three states, the na antah prajnam, na bahi prajnam of the Turiya is there, the fourth state, which is beyond the Jagrat Swapna Sushupti, which is beyond the three individualities and the three Ishwaratvas. where the fourth state, the Turiya Avastha, is described, which is to take you beyond samsara. And that is how the Mandukya Upanishad is said to be short and direct. Briefly put, that you have to move from the one being trapped, the individual being trapped in waking dream deep sleep cycle, not merely day night. From day night we have shifted to waking dream deep sleep, and you are not the one trapped in waking dream deep sleep. By inquiry, you can identify with the Turiya Avastha. That is what is there in Mandukya. So we have seen the common man perspective. We have seen somewhat the teachings in Taittiriya Upanishad. We have seen a little bit about the direct approach that Mandukya Upanishad has. Now we are ready to take Bhagavan's gift to us. Bhagavan takes away the other requirements and focuses totally on Bhrigu, totally on the knower. Whether you are in Jagrat, Swapna or Sushupti, whether you are having a guru or not having a guru, as with Bhrigu and Varuna, the guru merely turned him inward. Here, the teaching, let us see what the teaching is. The teaching is that Bhagavan uses only the Sushupti to show that the individuality survives Sushupti. That Bhagavan says, in 3 verses, he captures the essence of the problem. In verse number 23, 24, 25, and 26 of Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan covers the essence of the problem, directly bringing the problem to what we started the topic as, that not knowing the knower is the only problem we all have. There is no problem that the world is all going to the dogs. That we overcame by saying that whatever may be happening there, it is your job to use the good that you have been provided with and bring the good to this situation. That is each individual's responsibility. We saw that clearly, and that took us to Taittiriya Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, and now to Bhagavan. Bhagavan is going to make us free of the requirement of knowing about Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Ishvara of the Mandukya Upanishad. He is going to make us free of the Panchakoshas that are mentioned in the Bhrigu. In the dialogue between Bhrigu and Varuna, he goes through the Panchakoshas. The Annamaya Kosha makes him see the Supreme Being also full of matter. The Pranamaya Kosha makes him see the Supreme Being as being full of energies, and so on. Whereas Bhagavan is going to take us from knowing these Panchakoshas as well as the Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and the Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Ishvara to just one thing. He is going to say that, let me go through these verses. Let me start with verse number 24, which takes the problem head on. He says, Jadavudal nan ennadu. Please permit me to read in Tamil. I will explain in English. Jadavudal nan ennadu. Satchit udiyadu. Udalalawa namunrudikum idayilidu. Chit jada granthi. Bandham. Jeevan. Nutpame. Ahandai. It chamusaram. Manam. End. This is the definition of the problem in the most direct way. That is, not knowing the knower is at the root of all problems. He says, Jadavudal nanennad. The body has dependent existence, dependent consciousness, and does not have existence and consciousness of its own. Therefore, it cannot say I. It cannot have this subjective experience as I. The Satchit, the experience of the Rishi is that the Satchit will not rise because it does not have a second to rise or set. So, Jadabudal, the inert body cannot say I. The Satchitananda does not rise as I. But between these two, between the Satchitananda and the inert body, Udalalava Nanu Trudika. To the extent of this body, there arises an I in between the inert body and the Satchitananda. This is called Chit Jada Granthi. This is the Chit Jada Granthi is the only problem that Bhagavan is going to present us. The whole of samsara is only this knot between the Purna Chit and the Purna Jada. That the completely inert one and the completely Sattva, the Sattvastu, these are interconnected by our ego, which is called as the Chit Jada Granthi. This is the only problem he is going to present us. He is not going to present us the knowledge, the requirement of knowledge of Panchakoshas. He is not going to present us with the requirement of knowledge of who is the in charge of Jagrat, Supna, Sushupti. Will you identify with the Virat Swarupa? Will you identify with the Hiranyagarbha? Will you identify with the Ishvara? None of these questions are asked. He says the problem is present at all levels of existence. If there is a relative existence, there is this Granthi. There is this Granthi called Chitjada Granthi. This is Jivan, Nutpame, Ahandai, Ichamusaram, Manam, End. The whole of samsara is reduced by Bhagavan or is brought to its root as this Chitjada Granthi, the knower. The not knowing the knower, what happens there, what knowing the knower is what makes us identify with this gross body, with this prana sharira, with this manomaya sharira, with this vijnanamaya sharira, and with the anandamaya kosha of individuality. It makes us identify, and we get the feeling that we are in the respective worlds. The samsara opens up as the moment you identify with one of the bodies, the respective world opens up right before us. So we feel we are two people walking in the park with our respective minds within each one of our bodies, only because each one of us has identified with the gross body. So the Chitjada Granthi can shift from, it is like having this Ashtamaha Siddhis. It can shift from this plane of grossness to the subtle body to the causal body and have the respective world trappings in which it feels it is caught. So Bhagavan says that this is the root of all problems. And what is the solution to this? The solution to this, there is one more verse which says that the problem manifests itself by holding on to forms, but we are not going into that. We can remain with the problem only. The problem is that there is the Chitjada Granthi. What does it manifest as? For our ease of understanding, let us go to the other scripture called Drishya Viveka. That from Taittiriya Upanishad to Mandukya Upanishad to now Drishya Viveka, to understand how Bhagavan has gone to the root of the problem. Bhagavan himself clarifies this in talk number 25 of Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi while talking about Drishya Viveka. He says that the root of all problems is this Chitjada Granthi, the relative sphere. Therefore, you can see that all levels of the problem can be seen as the relationship between the relative seer and the relative scene, the relative subject and the relative object. What does the problem been defined as? The problem is defined as the existence of the relative subject, the Chirjada Granthi. What does it manifest as? It manifests as the relative seer seeing the relative world, the scene. And in about 5 sentences, Bhagavan takes us from the problem to solution. Even in the Drigdrishya Viveka, I have not come across the suggestion made by Bhagavan in talk number 25. So we can go and refer to that, and let me take you through those 5 sentences slowly so that we understand how Bhagavan resolves this knot of Chitjada Granthi. He says that any level of problem, since the Chitjada Granthi is at the root, it manifests as the seer and the seen. And where does the solution lie? The solution lies in the fact that there must be an underlying unity between the seer and the seen. What does this mean? It means that there is an underlying unity between me and the 15 people I see. There is an underlying unity between me and, let us say that I feel 10 days from now, I will be better off with some other situation. Between that self and this self, there is an underlying I which connects both now itself. It's not later. Here and now, there is an underlying I that connects the Drik and Drishya. What does this mean? This means that, getting back to Mandukya Upanishad, that when you ask, who is the one who is seeing this world? Who is the one who is seeing this world? In Drigdrishya Vivekam, we immediately come to the Virat that is mentioned in the Mandukya Upanishad. That there is only one self underlying all sensory perceptions. All sensory perceptions of the waking state, there is only one seer. We feel there are many seers there because we are not holding the Drik. Who is the seer? When Bhagavan comes to Arunachala, he is immediately made to ask this question, who is seeing Arunachala? Arunachala being the rest of the creation. For a moment you hold like that. Is Bhagavan separate from the rest of the creation? No. So he is made to ask, who is seeing Arunachala? And he says, Kandava Nintrida Nindradu Kande. When you put attention on yourself, the relative seer goes. For a moment, let me continue to speak. But you put attention on who is listening. Can you do that for me? That don't listen to what I am saying. Right now, continue. Let me continue speaking. But you put attention on who is the listener. The listener vanishing. The self-attentive self there makes us, albeit for a moment, meet the Virat. But because of the vasanas, we come back and become the relative sensor again. But when the vasana kshaya is there, we are going to identify with the Mandukya Upanishad's Virat when we cross the senses in Drigdrishya Vivekam. When we hold the seer of the sensory plane. Who is the seer in self-attention? The Virat Swarupa is there. Self-enquiry will take to that point where you will understand that the Ishvara Swarupa is there. That the Jagrata Avastha is being substratically supported by the Virat Swarupa of Mandukya Upanishad. That is why you can turn inward to the self. Because the grace, whatever your intellect may be telling is happening in the world, your experience will take you to the Virat Swarupa, and your turning inward will become even more complete when you practice the Drigdrishya Vivekam or Atma Vicharan, which we are going to come as the solution to not knowing the knower. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let's come back to Drisya Viveka. What does Bhagavan say? The second sentence is that as you hold the underlying eye, you are seeing the other person and treating them as somebody else. Bhagavan says, between your seeing self and their seeing, there is an underlying unity already. You don't need to become that excellent speaker that Vaniji is. You see her giving a wonderful address at 11:15 to 12:15 today. She had addressed our gathering and it was totally filled with Bhagavan's grace. But what does Bhagavan say here? You don't need to feel that the upadhis that she brought into the speech, the beauty with which she was speaking, need not make you feel to aspire for those things, because already you are united in the self that connects you and the speaker and the scene. That means don't aspire for their upadhis, for their blessings given by Bhagavan, but go directly for who they are as the self, that hold the underlying self. Then you don't feel any discontent in you. You don't feel you are not such a good devotee. A great devotee is speaking in front of you. And what have you missed? When you have that thought, ask yourself, for whom is this thought? For whom is this thought that the other devotee is so much better off? Obviously they are. But then Bhagavan saves us by saying that go for their essence, go for their self by holding the eye. And what will happen? Bhagavan says the drik will become subtler and subtler. The drishya also will become subtler. You will have to inquire further that suppose you go from the sensory world to the thought world, which is the Hiranyagarbha's field. There, once you hold, you will go to the causal world. You will go to not knowing. That means you see the thoughts and inquire for whom is this thought. You go to the Ishvara of deep sleep. There will be many who will say that I face a blank on inquiring for whom is this thought. I face a blank. And that blank is the deep sleep brought here and now. That means we are bringing through Drisya Viveka, through Atma Vichara, we are bringing from the waking state, we are bringing the dream here because we have made the whole of waking state subtle as Drisya, and further inquiry into Drisya brings us to the blank of deep sleep. But Bhagavan says, continue to inquire as to who is facing the blank. You will come to the Turiya Avastha of the Mandukya Upanishad as the I. In continuing to practice beyond the Hiranyagarbha Avastha, you will come to see that the three states and the three individualities are crossed by self-inquiry to come to the Turiya Avastha, which is stand alone. So the Mandukya Upanishad's truth and the truth of the discussion between Bhrigu and the Acharya Varuna will be practically experienced by us in removing this Chitjada Granthi. What is the practice given for us? For practicing the Drisya Viveka, for adopting the truth found out by Bhrigu, for adopting what we will realize by practicing the truth of Mandukya Upanishad. Bhagavan says the root problem is not the presence of Jagrat Swapna Sushupti, is not the presence of the various problems of the world, is because within you, this body does not say I, and the pure Brahman within you does not rise as I. But in between these two, there is the Chitjada Granthi, which is rising as I, which is the root of all problems. What is the solution Bhagavan provides? This not knowing this and identifying with various levels is the root of all problems. The solution is know the knower. Know who is the knower. We know the objects, we know our emotions, we know the thoughts, knowledge, we know the discriminatory knowledge, we know other people as good, bad, and middling, but we have never inquired into who is this knower, who is really this self that is experiencing all these objective experiences. So Bhagavan turns the searchlight directly on the place where it is to be put. That there is this morning we had a talk from Chinmaya Mission's Mandya head, where he brought out this story that is commonly known in Vedantic circles, where there is this old lady who is searching for the sewing pin in the street light. And one person after another, they come, they join her, they do a lot of search, and they go away, having failed. About 6th or 7th person comes and asks, Amma, you are searching here for such a long time. I am seeing so many people come and go. Where did you lose your pin? Where did you lose your suji? And she says, I lost it when I was stitching my torn dress, sitting on my sofa inside the house. Then he asked, why are you searching for that in the searchlight, in the street light? She says, there is a power cut in home. Only the street light is on. That is why I am searching here. And Bhagavan says, that is how we are searching for the solution to our problems. Having created the problem very deep within us, as the Chit Jada Granthi, we are trying to find happiness. We are trying to find true knowledge. We are trying to find liberated eternal existence outside of us, in the street light, when what has been lost very deep within us. It has to be found by diving deep within. Bhagavan says that in the sadhana verses that are there, 27, 28, 29, we find Nanudiyadulla nilai, Namaduvayi ulla nilai. Nanudikkum Tanamade Nadam. Nanudiya Tannirappai Sarvadevan. Saramal Tanaduvam Tannilayil Nirpadevan Sat. How is this Chichada Granthi to be broken? How is this false knower to be completely dismantled? Bhagavan says in one sentence, he covers the whole of Vedantic truth by saying that where that ego does not rise from the Brahman, where the ego does not rise from the Satchit, there you yourself are the Satchit. Nanudiyadulla nilai, Nam aduvai ulla nilai. When you don't rise from the Satchit as the ego, identifying with the body. What is this identifying? This identifying is being one with. It is the highest form of attachment. If you see the presentation by Carl Sagan on the human brain, you will find that the cross-section shows that within us, there is this reptilian brain surrounded by the mammalian brain, surrounded by the primate brain, surrounded by the prefrontal cortex of the human being. That means the scientists are in agreement, whatever they are in agreement or otherwise with the Vedantics. They are in agreement with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and others. When they say, as a human being, already you have got a very rare opportunity because you have identified with reptiles, you have identified with mammals, you have identified with primates, you have identified now with human beings. Identified means what? Effortlessly, the morning you get up, you are a human being. That is the identification. But for that, we would have done many iterations of what has to be done to be a human being. Right now, we are being asked, can you do the iterations required to identify as effortlessly with the Supreme Being? Not as a human being, from human being. What is the purpose of having taken this Chijjada Granthi? This Chijjada Granthi has been with us when we have been reptiles. Stephen Hawking says, if the same aggression of the reptilian brain in us continues and the power of the prefrontal cortex of nuclear power is combined, then in no time human beings will destroy themselves, not the world. Because the reptilian brain is still there, with which the identification has been loosened but not completely remote. Our aggression for each other is still there in some form. When it is combined with the prefrontal cortex powers, then it's a deadly combination, says Stephen Hawking. But then see how our Vedantic teachers make us even more responsible. That what you have to bring to this world is not merely being a better human being, is to bring the presence of the Supreme Self right from within you. You have to be in the Samadhi Sthiti. You have to be in natural oneness with the source, so that the Chichada Grandhi is cut. And your Sahaja Sthiti, your natural identity, is with the I of the Supreme Being. As you open your mouth, it is that which is beyond that comes. As you move your hand, as Surinagama writes about Bhagavan, he was not teaching merely through the books and through his oral instructions. His very breath, his very existence was bringing in that Supreme Being into this limited dimension, is what Surinagama writes of Bhagavan. And that is the responsibility he leaves us with. It is commonly said that the teaching that Bhagavan gives is of such nature that he doesn't want us to become better human beings. He doesn't want us to be satisfied with even some degree of divinity. He wants us to be exactly like him. He wants us to be that self which is not born. What do I mean? The Jagrat Supna Sushupti Sthiti inquiry and the Panchakosha inquiries, they take us to a point where we get the feeling that the self is at the end of all these inquiries. But Bhagavan, in his Atma Vichara, takes us to that spot where Gaudapada asks us to go, that called Ajata. He takes us to the beginningless place where even time and space have not started. That means what? That means this is the Ajata Sthiti of the self is where he takes us. And this he would repeat time and again by asking. Somebody who would say, what is going to happen to me tomorrow? Will I get a little bit more money or not? Will my child become all right or not? Bhagavan will immediately ask, was this problem present in deep sleep? Or he will ask the question that, see, if you are born today, let us inquire about what is going to happen tomorrow later. Only if you are born now, you will have to worry about what is going to happen tomorrow. See if you are born. See if the ego is born out of the self. That means what? Bhagavan's teachings is that without the rise of the ego, time has not arisen. Space has not arisen. That is the Ajata Sthiti. That means no troubles are really there. The whole samsara that we are fearing, the pocket that is empty, the stomach that is empty, is really not there in the perfectness of the Supreme Being. And that is the door that he opens for us. That the Ajata Sthiti, that none of this has ever happened. The self is blemishlessly free. And all you have to do is know the knower. This one particular task will understand the whole mystery before us. In 2004, when self-inquiry came to me, I did not know anything about any of the spiritual paths in any depth. The only thing that I have had the privilege of doing with Bhagavan's grace was practice self-inquiry. And whatever is said in those great scriptures, they are all really great because they provide the pathway out of samsara. But we realize that great as they are, Drigdrishya Viveka is great. Mandukya Upanishad is great. So is Taittiriya Upanishad. So are the Upanishads. So is Bhakti Marga. So is Karma Marga. So is Yoga Marga. But then Don't you want to know the root of the problems? Don't you want to know it here and now? And don't you want to be with the understanding that this root of all problems is within each one of us, deep within each one of us? As the relative knower, as the Chitjadak Granthi, the question that came to me in the workshop was, if we keep looking at the Chitjadak Granthi, how am I going to do in the office? What am I going to do in the office? How do I bring this knowledge there? The sharing is made by Bhagavan to Kapali Shastri. Kapali Shastri has a similar question. Each time I ask anything, you say, doubt the doubter. Ask for whom is this question? You are not allowing me to go to the next thought. How am I to function in this world? And Bhagavan says, I am coming to your help. Wait. That each time you let a thought go by asking for whom is this thought and put attention on the Granthi, on the Chitjada Granthi, as who am I, a little bit of the attachment to the form, attachment to the body, inert body, goes, and a little bit of the light of the self enters you. Despite the circumstances being the same, you have already changed the world. You have already changed the world by changing yourself, something that is totally with you. Others may say you are still having the same problems, but you have already brought a change to the world in the most fundamental way possible. That you have changed yourself. You have become a little bit more filled with the light of the self, a little bit less attached to the darkness of the body. And Bhagavan says, you meet the world with this new light. The average existence of you has been uplifted already. Why do you want any other benefit to be catalogued to you? And any other benefit, I may say, will now be looked forward to you, and you will not pay attention to the Chitjada Granthi. Attending to the Chitjada Granthi itself is enough to make you understand and play your role in this world, and at the same time take you towards that which is beyond this samsara. Without asking the teacher to enumerate the benefits. If you ask some other teachings, they will enumerate a list of benefits. But in self-inquiry, we may not enumerate list of benefits. But Bhagavan comes to our aid through Kapali Shastri. He says that each time you make this inquiry, for whom is this thought, and put a little bit of that attention on that Chitjada Granthi. That Chitjada Granthi loosens a little bit of the darkness of its association with the body goes, and the pure light of the self comes in. See to it that slippage doesn't occur in that sadhana. Like Bhrigu, stick to your tapasya, stick to your meditation, but stick to it with Atma Vichara, of knowing the knower. Have this rule with us, having gone through all the situations that are there, from common perspective to the perspective that the world is inside the subtle mind, and the perspective that each one of us is having the Supreme Being within us, but somehow that Supreme Being's vision is being blocked by this Chitjada Granthi, and all that we have to do is dismantle this Chitjada Granthi by asking, for whom is this thought? Who am I? Again and again, with the same amount of vairagya that Bhrigu had, going through all those koshas, we have to unravel this Chitjada Granthi. And this sadhana itself is sufficient for us to face the world better, for us to play our role better, because we are going to meet the same situation, but with a better torchlight. And that torchlight will completely dismantle the seen and the relative seer and merge with the Atmaswarupa, with the Satchitananda, which is our true nature. And that should become sahaj, just like our human nature has become natural to us. The moment you get up in the morning, you are a human being. The moment you get up in the morning, you are a mother. The moment you get up in the morning, you are a banker. The moment you get up in the morning, you are a lawyer. The moment you get up these are all, we have become sahaja nishtas in these identities. As the Chitjada Granthi loosens, just with the same ease, effortlessly, one identifies to that which is beyond the Granthi. The I is our nature. Jagrat comes, goes, Supna comes, goes, Sushupti comes, goes. They are not any of that. Only the I is shining. And it is Sahaj. It is our nature. It is the Ananda. It is the Chit. It is the Sat. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.